Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Welcome, Anita.
Why, thank you. I have been looking forward to our mutual discourse for the day.
Oh, have you? This sounds very fancy and scholarly.
Why, yes, it is. We will be reading from the book of importantness.
The book of death.
Maybe.
What's happening?
So, I had a dream about you last night. Do you want to hear about it?
Yes.
We together went to visit one of our former guests, who I think was not a real person because I don't know any of our guests that fit this criteria. We took with us a wagon, like one of those wagons that you see people like taking, like those collapsible wagons. Do you know what ones I'm talking about? That, like,
So
you
not
drag-
not the red flyer wagon.
like a red
kind.
flyer wagon, but those like canvasy ones.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so we had a bunch of stuff in the canvasy wagon. And when we got to the person's house and we went to go inside, there were no doors. It was like you had to crawl through these weird porthole things. So we couldn't bring the wagon inside, so we left it outside. And we intended to just go in for a few minutes, but we ended up going in and it was like a crazy weird maze inside. It was very bizarre.
Ooh.
And we stayed for a long time.
This sounds like a video game.
And then when we came out, guess what?
What?
The wagon was gone. Somebody
Oh.
had stolen it.
Then did you wake up?
No, I'm not done yet.
Oh, okay.
The perpetrators came forward. Okay? And I said to them, "Did you steal our wagon?" And they were like, "Yes." And they were very, very, very tall. There was 4 of them. And they were men. And they were like 7 feet tall. Okay?
Okay.
And I took note of this because I wanted to know how tall they were so I could call the police. And I told them, I was like, "You are 6'9" and you are 6'7". Anyway, they said, "We want you to come in the backyard and we're going to let you buy back the stuff in your wagon." And I was like, "Screw that. No." And you were like, "Okay." So we went in the backyard and they tried to auction off all of our stuff that they had stolen from us. And it was weird stuff. Like nothing worth any value. And I was like, "I'm calling the police." And so I did. And I went to the front yard to wait for the police. And they came, but it took them a long time, 40 minutes. And when I came back to the backyard, you and the perpetrators were gone.
What? Did they abduct me?
I think you went willingly with them because you thought they were actually kind of fun to hang out with.
They seem really fun.
I think you abandoned me because you realized they were more fun. I'm not sure because I never found you again. The police showed up and they were like, well, what was in the cart? And I told them and they were like, why did you call us? All of that stuff is garbage. Except for a Cotopaxi jacket.
Oh, yes.
And a Kindle Fire. And the rest was like weird stuff.
Now, for those that know Anita, they know that she has an obsession with Cotopaxi. And if you remember the episode where she talks about sleep ordering luggage, that was the brand of the luggage, Cotopaxi. Anita, that is hilarious that you had a dream that I was in, because did you know that I also had a dream that you were in?
No.
And two of our widow wives, I even know who they are. Our friend Marie and Karen from Canada.
No.
The OG, the first Karen from Canada.
Okay.
Winnipeg Karen from Canada. Yeah.
What happened in your dream?
All I know is that they became really good friends and they were coming to town to visit. And we went to this restaurant near us called Robintino's, which is an actual real thing that we like.
So
and then
funny.
there were these hoodlums hanging out in the parking lot.
Were they very tall?
No, but I had to call the cops and I was so proud of myself because I remained calm. I gave a thorough description and then the cops came and I could give my location. Obviously, I was watching a true crime show before I went to bed that night. So anyway, they showed up and then they caught the assailants and then they stun gunned them and then they go, well, there's no place in jail for them because there are no jails anymore. So we just put them in this little corridor and locked the doors. So there you go. Bye.
That is bizarre.
And then we all went back to hanging out. Marie from LA and Karen from Canada.
We both had police dreams. I was not watching true crime, by the way. Ugh, something's up.
Uh-oh. What's going to happen? Are these dreams premonitions? Hey, does that mean Marie and Karen are going to become good friends and then come visit us?
I think that's exactly what it means.
Guys, very cool. Well, I actually did find a really cool show last night that I thought was interesting. It was definitely made for me. It has a medium in it and a homicide detective. This is like a real show, not a scripted show. And they go and they investigate weird goings-on of the energetic of the energetic category.
Like the Ghostbusters category?
Kind of, but then they investigate the actual facts of the house or the time period or the town. It's pretty amazing. It's called The Death Files. Anyway, that's dark, but guess what? This is a podcast by two widows, so it's gonna be dark.
I have a question for you.
What?
I was thinking about this the other day. Right now, do you feel like a strong portion of your identity is widow?
Yeah, I do.
Do you think that will change in the future? Do you think as you get further out, that will become a smaller piece of your identity until it's not taking up so much space in your identity?
I've actually thought about this too, and I think the answer would be yes. I do have a friend. Now, this is a little bit different, but it reminded me of it. It's like we think so much of our identity as whatever our situation is. So for us widows, we've been through a lot. Of course, it's going to define us. I had a friend that had a really rare kind of lung and heart disease, and she had to go to a specialty hospital and move there, and she's been there for like 5 years. And now her condition is in remission. And she actually wrote a blog article about what it's like to not have your illness as your identity anymore. Because she's like, well, I'm not sick anymore. I'm on the recovery side, but I got so used to living my life in terms of this disease and all that fun stuff that I'm kind of grieving not being sick anymore, even though I am glad I'm not sick and dying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I've thought about that with relation to widowhood, and
the only difference is widowhood doesn't go away. Once you're a widow, you're always a widow. But I feel like the bulk of our listeners are in kind of the early stages like we are. I mean, some people might not think 2 or 3 years is early, but I know. I kind of wonder if 10 years from the death of our stupid husbands, that will still be, I really,
Jerks.
they're not stupid. Yeah. If that will still feel like a big part of our identity, even in the journey that I've taken for the last 2 years, I feel like it used to occupy all of my thoughts. Used to be everything I could think of. Every minute that I wasn't doing something else, that's where my brain would go. And I've noticed that that's not the case anymore. I still think about it a lot, but it's not occupying all of my thoughts. And so I wonder if you get far enough away, if that becomes a smaller part of your identity.
I want to say, if I could speculate, that yes, you are correct. Because as time moves on, it doesn't change our circumstance that happened, but time also has moved on. And so we are evolving as well. And maybe if we are 10 years out and it still occupies the same space, maybe we need some help.
Interesting thoughts. Because that kind of lends to the idea that there is like a time frame for...
I know, right? And I hate that!
So I don't know. Here's another question.
What?
So I was outside today and some old friends kind of walked by, like somebody who I grew up, who knew me when I was a youth.
A street youth.
A street youth, yes. And she asked me how I was doing, and she, of course, knows my situation. And she was like, hey, I think you know somebody that I know. And she told me this name, and I was like, maybe. And she's like, look, there's a picture of you on Facebook with this person. And I had met her at a widow's conference, I think. Mm-hmm. Anyway, she said to me, well, she's remarried now. And the way she said it kind of was like, so now her identity is not widow anymore. And I was like, but it kind of, that doesn't just go away if you get remarried. Do you know what I'm saying?
We need Melissa Ponder Brackman to come back on and talk to us about this, because this is so something that stresses all of us out, I think. Don't you?
I don't know if it stresses other people out. I just thought it was interesting that in a non-widow, non-our situation kind of a person, it was binary. It was like, if you get remarried, then you don't belong in the widow community anymore because you have overcome your widow status.
Yeah. Oh, why is it so hard? It's so gray.
Dead husbands.
Dead husbands, man. I don't know anything about it, obviously, because I'm not remarried.
Obviously.
And except to you, my widow wife.
Yes.
But when you hear people tell stories that have gotten remarried, they never say, yes, everything's fine now. Yeah. They say, I still have the hole there from my husband. It's different now, and I can move forward, but that doesn't mean that I've moved on from him. But I also have in some ways, because I'm with this other person. Melissa, it's time for your second interview because we have questions.
Oh, man. So, what's going on in your life, though? Anything exciting, unusual, rare?
My relaxing music YouTube channel has like 8 videos on it now.
And I heard from somebody that you are doing them according to hertz.
Okay, we're going to depart from widow for a second and get into the specifics of solfeggio frequencies. So for those who do yoga or meditation...
Excuse me? Solfeggio.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's a whole long thing about it, but basically, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, all those things. There's the part of music that has to do with not just pretty songs and everything. There's like frequencies and sine waves and all that stuff. There are certain frequencies that correspond to the chakras in our body and to other things as well. For example, did you know if you play... Oh my gosh, this is so bad. If you play a low enough frequency that resonates with your colon...
It'll make you poop?
You will go to the bathroom. Yes. So stuff like that. Anyway, so... The ones that I'm doing have to do with yoga and meditation.
You should definitely market that.
I'll be like, guys, are you plugged up? Here's 38 hertz or whatever it is.
Can you play that on the piano, or is it like lower than that note?
It's lower than that, and it would be like a sine wave sort of a situation. So anyway, I have made 7 frequencies that correspond with each of those chakras, and I am releasing these meditation music thingies, whatever they are, my relaxing YouTube music channel. in order of the chakras. So right now I have the root chakra, which is 396 hertz. The next one is the sacral chakra at 417 hertz. So anyway, if you're into kind of very specific nerdy frequency situations having to do with sound, and you like meditating, and you like beautiful, relaxing piano music that's tied into it, yes, I've made it all an amalgamation. Check out my YouTube channel. It's free. I'll put it in the show notes. Or don't. Maybe you don't need any help going to the bathroom. Wow.
People are going to think that's what it's for.
It's not.
It's not.
What's happening with you, Anita?
So, this week my dad retired. So, we had, like, stuff that went along with that. That was kind of like the big thing that happened this week. He's worked for the same place for 38 years, which is the same age as Melanie J. Shore.
That's me, Melanie Jim Shore.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So,
how did it go? How's he feeling?
I think he's feeling a little untethered.
How's your mom feeling, more importantly?
She was, I think, kind of freaking out a little bit. I think she probably still is. It's going to be a transition. Quite the transition for him. Because he's like always working. Always, 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 always. So I'm sure that he will still be doing that. But it will be different. Because it will be like not official.
Yeah.
He'll have to figure it out for himself. We took him out to dinner. It was fun. I got to hang out with my siblings, which doesn't happen that often without the kids. We left the kids home. So that was fun.
Nice. Anything else happen? Nobody has had any stitches this week.
No.
What about panic attacks? How's your daughter doing?
Oh,
should we not talk about it? Okay.
No, we can talk about it. It's been kind of up and down. She made it through a couple more days of school this week. We got emails from her teachers saying that she was completely failing and needed to get a few more assignments done to pass the classes and not have to like repeat them and stuff like that. So there was a little bit of a mad dash. But the semester ended and she has been like gleeful this weekend because there's no pressure. It's like starting over. There's nothing she can do about last semester. It is done. It is gone. So that's been
a fresh start.
Yeah. And we've been all eating food that's no fun because she's doing this elimination diet too to try and help her tummy. So
yeah, there's no cheese at your house.
No cheese.
We might have
gluten.
to not be widow wives for a while. No offense.
How about I give you all the cheese and
okay.
You can eat it for me? Yeah.
That's fine.
But here's the problem, Mel. I have discovered that 100% of the things I feed my children are a carbohydrate plus a cheese. Macaroni and cheese, pasta plus cheese, quesadilla, tortilla plus cheese, grilled cheese sandwich, bread plus cheese, nachos, tortilla chips plus cheese. That's all we eat.
Well, now what are you eating? Since
Nothing.
You can't have cheese.
No. My kid, the other kids are still eating that, but I'm like, this is all I feed you people, apparently.
Can we talk about how your daughter is taking after me?
Yes.
Her fake stepmom?
Yes. She wants to dye her hair blue, and I don't care. I don't mind having a blue-haired daughter. I do mind having to put forth more effort than I'm already putting forth as a human. Because she can't do it by herself. She's 14.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm like, I don't want to do the work.
It's not that much work.
It's more work.
Well, I also realize I am speaking to somebody who has not cut their hair in like 900 years.
2 years. I know, it's so bad. I really need to, but I just don't. I even told her that I would dye the tips of my hair too because I need to get it cut, and maybe that would help me to go get it cut. Like if it looked really terrible.
Are you going to get it cut?
I need to.
Do it.
I was talking. It was funny because I was telling my family about her desire to dye her hair, and I was like, I just don't want it to look trashy either, because sometimes people try and dye their hair colors and it like looks kind of grungy.
Yeah,
like it's a lot of effort to do it right, and if you don't do it right, then it just looks kind of not very good. Anyway, and then our waitress walked up, and I was like, I'm just gonna stop talking.
Did it look trashy?
Maybe.
Oh my gosh, Anita. Maybe you're judgmental. Maybe.
Maybe I am.
I totally get it. When I go get mine done, it has to look a certain way, or it looks like I didn't do a good job. And
it looks like you dyed your hair with Kool-Aid, and it's like kind of washing out, and your hair color's underneath it. And anyway,
here's what you want. You want it to look expensive, but you don't want it to be expensive.
Isn't that the truth of everything in life?
You want Nordstrom hair at Walmart prices or dollar store prices.
Ross Dress for Less. Okay, I went to the Dollar Tree the other day, and it was the funniest experience because the Dollar Tree is not known for having cashiers that are especially speedy or care about their job, you know. And there were a lot of people in line, and there was only 2 cashiers, and then this old guy, like really old guy, comes and is like, "Where's the line?" And somebody tells him where the line is, and 3 or 4 people were like, "Would you like to go in front of us, sir?" You know, and he was like, "No, I'm fine." He starts yelling at the cashiers. He's like, "Why can't you get more help up there?" And they start yelling back at him.
What did they say?
They're like, "This is all that's here. This is all we've got working. This is what you got." And he's like, "You guys should have more cashiers."
It's also the dollar store.
I was just laughing at the lady behind me. I was like, I didn't know the Dollar Tree was going to be so entertaining today.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, and then a new cashier showed up. Like, she came in, and he kept yelling at her, "Are you ready? Are you open?" I mean, there's like 30 people in front of him, and he's like going to go, but everybody just let him go because they were like, that old guy, he is...
You know what happened?
He's got somewhere to be.
No, maybe Dollar Tree played the 38 hertz sound wave, and he just had to go to the bathroom. That's all.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was good fun. Hey, speaking of that,
what?
Should we do our Patreon shout out?
Yes.
Because it doesn't make any sense, but I wanted to tie it together.
You guys, thank you to our Patreons.
To our patrons from Patreon. It's
yes.
Very confusing.
That for those who are not signed up, if you would like to help support our podcast, it's so much fun. We have some fun prizes for certain levels and surprises and all sorts of things. So check it out at patreon.com/WWDN.
So we'll thank our dead husbands first. We have David Kelly,
Katie Kuntz,
and Dawn Satterwhite.
Yes. Good job.
Now we're on to our widow besties and widow wives. We've got Lori Farrington,
Emily Thornton,
the fancy Lady Joy,
woo, JB Aliota,
Christina Scambato,
Shannon Helm,
my one and only Jackie,
Marjorie Lewis,
Black Wendy,
good job, Ashley Hahn,
Kara Scara,
Jenny Taylor,
Mamacita,
my mamacita, who made me tacos yesterday.
The OG Karen from Canada, who was in Mel's dream last night.
Yes. Rachel Barbosa, bringer of the sunshine.
Ileana Bell.
Anna Tracy.
Gabe Lozano.
Aaron and the baby Joeys.
Jenny Barrow.
Christine Anderson, who keeps running into people with psychic abilities. You know what I'm talking about, Christine.
Diana Becker.
Sarah Morris.
Some of you might be receiving your dead husband t-shirts or have received it. We want you to post a picture and tag us because it's kind of fun to see those. And if you haven't gotten your shirts, they're still coming.
Yes, let's give Anita a round of applause for getting to the post office. This has been a true trial. I support you. I can't even make it to my mailbox, let alone the post office.
Yep. All right.
Guess what, Anita? I'm so excited.
I am too, because this episode that's coming up is amazing.
Yes.
It's a surprise because we thought we were going one direction and it took a different direction. Sometimes.
It is a topic we have wanted to talk about for a long time now, and it's finally here. And it's with a super cool guest. So stay tuned. I'm Mel.
I'm Anita. And we're just 2 young widows who are really excited about the episode today, trying to figure out, widow, who we do now. 38 hertz. Gotta go.
Oh!
Yeah. Can I just give my perspective here? Mel tells me, hey, I've scheduled this guy to talk to us about life insurance. And so I'm like, okay. So then it's time to record the podcast, and I come sit down, and we get on our Zoom call and we're talking, and I'm like, hey, how did you guys meet? And they start giggling, laughing. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then I find out that they met on their show, and Connor is a choreographer, and then they just throw out of the blue and a hand model. And now I can't think of anything else except for that, you guys. Because where do you go from there?
Welcome, Connor. I love this.
Life insurance. Yeah, that's where we go.
I think we should just start with that. Well, Connor, welcome. That was a great introduction. And no more needs to be said. I think we're done here.
So yeah, everyone, welcome to the podcast. I'm a hand model, dancer, jazz, or choreographer, and now I do life insurance. Welcome to the party.
Connor, did you start doing life insurance because you had no Broadway job anymore? And the hand modeling dried up, or have you been doing this for a while?
So it's funny in all of the ways, and also not funny in any of them.
Okay.
So of course the industry, and like Mel knows this, viscerally, like totally caved in on itself. There was like no backdrop. There was like no gig economy. There's no teaching. There's no choreograph. There's nothing. So my normal fallback, which is always a great source of income, was hand modeling. It's like I could do one job a month. I'm good. I can slide. I can keep auditioning because like KFC.
You have to audition to be a hand model? They have auditions?
Yes. I don't do it as much anymore. I'm pretty much a big deal. You know, I've been doing it for 20 years. So if you know me, you're just going to hire my hands. You know what they look like.
Oh my gosh.
He's
a known hand in the industry.
I will say everyone on this podcast has seen my hands and my father's hands their entire lives, or at least the past 3 to 4 decades. So you have had our hands on your TV in your homes. So check them out.
Please give us, will you please give us some examples?
Okay, every fast food chain, like Olive Garden to KFC to Pizza Hut to Domino's to Verizon to duct tape to, like, you name it. Is it on TV? Does you see someone's hand do something with it? Yeah, I've done it.
Okay, wait. Yes, we just need to clarify that your dad was also a hand model. So
Yes.
You came into the family business, the hand modeling business.
I was born
Guys, we're
into
supposed
it.
to talk about life insurance, but we can't anymore. Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Well, it's good because it's all cyclical. So also
Okay.
my grandfather...
Keep bringing it back.
Yeah,
Bringing
so
it
my
back,
grandfather was also a life insurance salesman, like back in the day.
Yeah, back
So
in like the
yeah.
briefcase days.
Oh yeah, he would just like knock on doors, be like, "You want some?" So that's how it used to be. Thankfully, it's not that anymore. And apparently, so anyway, so how I got into it was the whole industry dried up, hand modeling stopped. There was no commercials being made. No one knew how to do anything. And then I was like, okay, I guess I have to get a job. And like all my training for all these years had kind of like come to nothing, where I couldn't really do too much. That wasn't already a hypersaturated field. Maybe teaching Zoom classes, but I didn't feel it. So then
Wait, Zoom classes on hand modeling or Zoom classes on
dance. That would have been like the other route that I could have gone, like really like teach people on Zoom and be a
Fun stuff.
Super fun. So anyway,
Yeah.
I said maybe not. So a friend reached out and like had a little post and was like, hey, if anyone's looking for a job, reach out to me. There's like maybe an opportunity. And I was like, okay, I have nothing to lose this many months. I think it was like 4 months or 5 months into the pandemic. And she just said, oh yeah, like talk to my boss, like have an interview with him. It's like life insurance. See if you like you jive with him and go for it. I was like, okay, like what's the worst that could happen? Having never, so we had to make a resume because I have no real resume. It's just, here's a theater that I've worked at. Here's a thing that I've done. Um, so anyway, I met with this guy and then he told me like how sales work. And I was like, okay, comparatively to theater, this is not a hard life. Like we're in a normal theater world, you get 1 out of 100 jobs. In life insurance, they're like, oh, you might make 1 out of 10 sales or something. And I was like, that's okay, that's great. And then you have to get your licensing, which apparently takes people months. I did it in like a few days.
Also, like, okay, because there's nothing else to do because you're stuck at home.
Yeah, so I like did the whole
nothing
training.
Else to keep you busy.
So it's like it's not too hard. I'm also a giant nerd. Like Mel probably knows this and all the other reasons. Like I love jazz, I love theater, but like I like reading, I like math, I like understanding things, I love science, I love history. So terms and conditions and all that stuff, eat it up.
Question that I know everybody wants to know. Can you insure just your hands? And are your hands insured?
Answer, I know this. So yes, you can. Is it practical anymore? No, it used to be in the 80s and 90s. I'm pretty sure it was actually very common for people to insure like your butt or your legs or your hands. But then people were taking advantage of that system. So then they ended up just scrapping the whole system because people would insure like a leg for $1 million and be like, then they would get their whole life paid if they like twisted their ankle. So it ended up not working out. So yeah, so I'm sorry everyone who's listening.
Fraud.
Yeah, fraud. Classic fraud.
I wanted to do fraud. So I'm sad.
You wanted
to do some of that.
Yeah, we were coming here to learn how to do fraud.
Well, I'm curious too, because Connor, you may not know this. Now, I know I am not on your level of amazing hand model situation things. However, I am the piano hand double for all 3 Disney's High School Musical movies.
That's amazing. I love that fact. That's a party fact.
And of course, I'm not, just side note, I'm not in the credits because when they come to Utah, they do it for because it's a right to work state, and so that they don't want to pay you anything. And I didn't know better. And people said, "Be quiet, don't say anything. If you want this job, just don't say anything." I'm like, okay, I'm 20, whatever.
We do a lot when we're 20 for the money, you know.
People would ask me, "Ooh, are you going to insure your hands now?" And I was like, "What?" So I'm really just so glad to learn all this from somebody that is well seasoned.
You know, yeah, it's better to just wear gloves and if anyone's listening, the cocoa butter with vitamin E really does the trick and also helps heal those scars.
Wait. Connor, you need to teach Mel a Zoom hand modeling class.
Oh yeah, we could do a sensible presentational skill of like how you would film and also present your hands.
Presentational skills. I love that so much.
And then do a kick line. With your hands.
I've had to do that at an audition. I literally had there was a group of guys and we had to stand around a bag of chips and we had to do a kick line with our fingers and then like march ourselves into a bag of chips and get a chip.
Did you get that job?
I did not.
I'm surprised because I feel like you should have gotten that job since you have the dance
too.
I gave them a whole break dancing session with my hand. I think they wanted simpler because I saw the commercial and it was not what they asked.
They wanted classic.
Yeah, they essentially just had a bunch of people reaching in and grabbing a chip. So, hey.
Was now remind me, are both of your parents dancers?
Yeah, so both of my parents were in the arts and theater and jazzed, and my dad did the movie All That Jazz, and my mom danced everywhere, and yeah, they did the thing.
Like Bob Fosse.
They travel.
Right?
Yeah. So they have run the gambit of musical theater and dance and classic showgirl life and contemporary modern world. So growing up just into the family, but they also, so another plot twist, they also kept their life a secret from us till we were 10 because they didn't want us dancing.
What?
because they knew it was too hard of a life. So then me and my brother found it on our own. And then they're like, oh, just kidding. We did this too.
What was their cover story? Did they tell you they were spies?
FBI.
So my dad at this point had switched into a full-time hand model. So he was not dancing at all anymore. So we just thought my dad was a quirky guy who did hand modeling, and my mom was just a stay-at-home mom who dressed up like a showgirl. I thought it was very normal for people to get out of bed and put on a 6-inch heel. And I was like, okay, that's a normal day. Because if you grew up with it, that's normal.
It would have been awesome had his cover story been life insurance. Then we would have gone.
And he
again.
and he could have pulled it off too, right? Because was it his dad that was a life insurance agent?
So it was my mom's dad.
Your
who was the life insurance.
mom's.
So yeah, that's where my mom got her performative element from, because like life insurance is like a lot of a sales game. It's a thing that people, so like if we want to get into it, and like this is the kind of conversation that I have with so many people, where it's like it's a product people do not want to buy. There is so much cognitive dissonance when it comes to it, and preservative thinking, that people like, why would you ever want to go into a conversation where you're like, I'm betting on my death? That's not like a normal human thought. Like we have this, we're conditioned to live. We're not conditioned to think like, I'm gonna die. Like I'm playing a roulette table every day, and those odds and those chances go up and down depending on my life skills. And essentially that's what life insurance companies are banking on. They're just, they're essentially playing by the rules of large numbers, and everything goes into an equation. So like the product is sold and premiums are set dependent on essentially equations of like, how healthy are you? Like, what's your age? And like, what's going to happen?
How likely are you going to die?
Yeah. And like, that's why.
While we're going to pay for it.
Yeah. And lucky if you're a female listener, you're going to be insured for a cheaper cost than guys, because guys just die earlier and testosterone kills us. So we are more expensive to insure.
Which we can attest to because we all have dead husbands who died.
Yeah.
And most of our listeners are women who have dead husbands.
Yeah. So. So I've now found a few interesting things, because now it's become an interesting experience just to like go into essentially strangers' homes, like, because we at least my company Nilico, and I'm with Soror Agencies, like how we work is so National Income Life Insurance Company. What my company does specifically is like we work with the unions and families, and we like get them set up. But there's so much dissonance for people. How do I say this? I've now run into a lot of women who don't want to talk about their finances with their husband when it comes up to like, okay, like who's insured? Like, what are your plans? Like, if something were to happen tomorrow, like what is everyone's situation? Like, how could we handle this? And some people will say like, oh, I don't know, but we don't really talk about it. And that's now I'm saying like, that is not an uncommon thing. That is like, I run into that like often. And then the other thing is men who I've talked to, and this is my anecdotal experience so far, and I've sat in a few houses. Men are harder to sell to because they're very stubborn, that they think they're protecting people. But we like know for a fact 40% of people, when there is a death in the family, specifically like a young death, they leave their partner in financial straits. So we know that. So that's 40%.
That's me. I'm in the 40%.
Yeah. So, and okay, if also like I love little facts. So right now, between 50 and 60% of Americans are insured. Of those, only 30% have adequate coverage to not put them in essentially that 40%. So even people who have policies generally don't have policies that keep them out of the red when something bad happens. So
you're saying they have a policy, but it just pays like $4 when they die, and that's not really helpful.
Yeah, it's a combination of they don't have a policy at all. They waited too long to have a policy. They don't know what their policies are doing, or they don't understand that certain things are going to disappear. So there's like, we can go into kind of the specifics if you guys want to, and then we can hop back into more some hand modeling facts of like different, I know, because we got to bounce it out, because there's a bunch of nerdy stuff and then there's hand modeling, they're both great. So yeah, a lot of people, Mel's really loving this.
This is my
So,
favorite day.
so people don't know kind of like, they're like, oh yeah, I'm insured through work. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. How much are you insured through work? And generally people don't even know that. Like most people don't on average know what policies they have, who they're with, how long they last, if they're going to leave with them after work. More and more people are becoming uninsured through work because obviously if no one noticed, there's more and more like freelance work that's going on. So most people aren't like sitting down at a desk in a company that's just going to give them these nice group benefits that stay with them their whole life. That's becoming less and less common in America when we have more right to works and we have more gigs. So essentially it's kind of leaving the individual out to dry with figuring out their life insurance as opposed to a company setting you up and saying like, oh yeah, you're going to have $30,000 for the rest of your life and don't worry, we got you. And like it's paid off through your work. Here's the policy, put it in your red folder and you're good. That's like not a thing anymore. So, or it is less and less common. So, because I also don't want to say any perfectly accurate things because there's always exceptions.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
But we're moving away from that. You don't get a pension anymore. There's no such thing as a pension. And yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's
and
like from the 1940s or something. I don't even know.
My father-in-law is what is the kind of insurance? He's not life insurance, but like personal injury attorney, and he's worked on both sides of like 4 insurance companies and then 4 clients, and he's just like, at the end of the day, no insurance company wants to pay out money, and so
well, that's just their whole thing,
right? They want to keep it. So it's like, I think, Connor, do you think a lot of people, especially women, go into decisions like this thinking so emotionally that they might feel bad for making a decision? I kind of don't know how I'm phrasing the question, but do you know what I mean? Like data versus thinking emotionally.
Yeah. So I think you have to think about it both ways because you have to think about it in an emotional way of like, okay, if I'm going to get life insurance, you have to think like, how can I protect myself and my family? Because like, okay, the second you move in with someone, okay, so yeah, you can get a nice 1-bedroom and it's bigger than what you're normally used to that you could afford by yourself. But also now it's like, because you've doubled your income or whatever your income, depending on like who's bringing home the cash. But a lot of people, so yeah, you have to think about it emotionally in the sense of like, you have to think about protecting people in case something happens to you. Like, how can I show affection through ensuring everyone else in the case that I'm not here to help them? That's like kind of how you have to like mentally phrase it. And then financially, it's actually pretty easy. Like it just comes down to like, it's called the DIME method, which is debt income times the number of years that you would want someone to be protected from, mortgage or housing expenses, and then education for children. So that's the DIME method. And you can either use that or there's programs that insurers have that make budget appropriate, essentially recommendations for what you should buy, because your financial planner probably talked about like how you actually invest money and how you should be like putting money into certain stocks or savings. This kind of becomes about just like, okay, like how do I use like less than 5% of my income to protect 95% of my income for everyone else, just in case something happens to me. And the fun thing about it is like, millennials overestimate the price of insurance by almost 300%, and 80% of Americans overestimate the price of life insurance. Like it's actually not that expensive to like protect your assets. So that's kind of what it comes down to, of like this combo of how do I protect people and what's that amount? Because you have to have the want to show affection by protecting them financially, because if you like, you guys obviously know, if something happens to you in such a traumatic way with death, you also don't want to then be compounded with the problem of like, oh, all of the finances are in tatters because we don't know where that red folder is. We don't know who has that money. We don't know so many things of who's paying what and where it is and what it looks like and what's the annual cost and who's taking it out and what bank account it's at. So
that echoes what Joy, the fancy lady, was saying. Like, the first step is to know what you have and where it is and exactly, who manages it, and just know where the red folder is and have stuff in the red folder also.
Yeah.
That's like the first step.
What has your experience been as you've been talking to people about life insurance? So you've talked to millennials. I'm assuming you've talked to people that are older than millennials. What's your
Yeah.
personal experience as you're going into the homes or Zoom or whatever it is and
Yeah,
talking to them?
it's all through Zoom, and it's so varied. Like some people, I've had youngest, like early 20s, and they're like, oh yeah, I totally understand this, and I'm gonna buy a whole life policy because it's dirt cheap at that age, and I can get $30,000 and bang, super easy, and it's like 20 some bucks a month, easy. And then I've talked to then I will also, like, part of my job is also going and talking to the beneficiaries and like the contingent beneficiaries to make sure that they know that they're a beneficiary, because like that's also a thing that happens all the time where people don't know that they're on a policy. That's like not
That's sad.
yeah, it's not uncommon
You want
because
to know you have money.
I mean, there is the Nigerian prince.
yeah, and he's a really nice guy and he shows up sometimes. But the problem is, like, people, the conversation, and you guys have probably experienced it, it's the conversation is so taboo around death that even bringing up, like, oh, you're on my policy if I'm to die, like this is what should happen and this is who you have to call. Like that whole conversation is like very quick and no one ever makes a note about it. So like when I make that call to that person being like, hey, you're the contingent beneficiary, like if something happens to this couple, you're the person who's claiming on this. So like you have to know where that red folder is and what this looks like. And this is how it works. And also that might change over time. And this person should have a serious conversation with you and showing you where that is. Because like there in the past like decade, there was billions of dollars of insurance that went missing and people didn't claim on it because they didn't even know they were insured, or they didn't even know that these policies were just floating out in the world. And you can find them now. There's like websites that help you with that and finding those policies specifically. But if you don't even know that there was a policy and then you don't find that random piece of paper when you're cleaning things out, or you don't even know what it looks like, you'll just throw it away. It'll just look like another bank statement probably.
So is that common that the insurance agent talks to the beneficiary? Because I know after my husband died, my dad was like, you need life insurance. And he had some guy on the phone. And then all of a sudden, then I had a health care worker coming to take my vitals and whatever. And then I had this policy and there was no conversation about that. And especially I don't even think I named one, but I mean, is that common, or is that something that kind of is common to not be addressed so that they don't have to pay stuff out?
So it like probably depends completely on the company. So that's what it comes down to. And you can actually see company ratings like AM Best or Moody's. Those people rate insurance companies. So also when you're buying insurance, you want to see what their ratings are, and ideally they should be an A+ or A+ superior rating, because you want someone who actually is going to pay out. You want someone that you know can pay out. And yeah, you don't want to run into the situation where you can't just actually see that information. So a lot of the more current life insurers have more interesting websites that are actually more user-friendly. So like a third of Americans actually just don't even talk to an agent anymore. They just go online and they buy stuff. So whether or not they actually know what they're buying becomes kind of another question, and like what they think they're buying.
Okay, you said a word, or you said a term that leads into that. You said that the 20-year-old buys whole life insurance. So what's the difference between the whole life and the term life? I'm pretty sure I've been told this at least 73 times and I still have no idea.
Oh, so yeah, the easiest way I think about it is whole life is buying, term is renting. And that's the easiest way you can think about it. If you pay whole life, that is level premiums for your whole life, and it doesn't change. So like you want to buy those policies earlier, ideally, because the premiums stay stuck at the age that you buy them at. So the same 30,000 whole life policy that would pay for your funerals and final expenses at the age of 20, and then at the age of 50 are going to be hundreds of dollars in difference. So, and that's per month. So you essentially don't want to be doing those bigger whole life policies later in life unless you can, but you're going to pay for them because the insurers know that you're a risk. They know the second you hit 55, if you're a guy, your heart attack chances like just shot up.
So you've gotten so good at awkward conversations in the last several months.
Yeah, well, it comes down to I kind of leave the space for awkwardness where it's just I just ask questions where and like those questions might be awkward because people just don't want to talk about them. And when you're doing a sale or when you're just sitting with someone and like having this conversation, even with a beneficiary, I'm like, okay, what's your plan tomorrow? Like you drive to work every day and the chance that you die in a car crash is this. So what does that look like?
It's so morose. You're like, do you know your chances of dying on the freeway? Do you know your chances of choking on a grape?
Yeah, and like the ideal situation is someone says like, oh yeah, like I'm not, the chances are actually really low, and I'm like, yeah, that's good. Like we should agree on that. Like we don't want to have a high percentage chance because also then things become really expensive for you. So that's what we ideally would not want to happen.
Can I ask you a question? Are these people you're talking to, did they contact you or did you contact them?
Yeah, so they at least at my company they have to contact us first. So we only work with two people.
They are asking you about life insurance, but then when you go talk to them, they're like weird about it. I would think that they would be prepared to talk about those kind of things if they're asking about life insurance.
You would think people are prepared, period.
At
And
least to
what
talk about it.
yeah, and then it becomes that situation where they're like not because they like you wanna
Like not jinx it or something.
yeah, and this is the thing that I don't understand. Like people don't really want to have that conversation because like or you'll see like one person wants to have it and one person doesn't want to have it. And that is maybe the most awkward conversations that I'll be in where I'll tell someone like so I'll talk to a beneficiary. I'll be like, "Hey, so here's a policy on your son. You're a contingent beneficiary and I have to teach you how to claim on your son if anything were to happen." And like we had to stop multiple times because she just like didn't even want to conceptualize that process. And I was like, I know, but like we have to do this because if we don't, then when everything is going wrong, this other thing is going to go wrong too, and that doesn't need to go wrong.
Anita,
What?
does this sound reminiscent of some of the stories we've talked about with widows who have had a husband that has had terminal illness? Because we assumed, Connor, that because certain widow situations, they were not sudden deaths like mine and Anita's husbands were. We were like, oh man, they had all this time and they've talked through all the things and like they were prepared and they knew where everything was filed and like they had all the conversations. And it's been surprising that that's not always the case. Right, Anita?
Yeah, because even though maybe the death is a possibility, they still don't want to talk about it because then it's like they're giving up hope or they're confronting a reality that they don't want to come to pass. So it's like we just won't talk about it because we don't want to open the door to that actually happening. So yes.
Yeah.
So weird though.
Yeah, it's been very funny being a Grim Reaper salesman, but just like kind of trying to make it comfortable for people and just being like, hey, like I like, and I also am not. It's not uncommon for me to be like, I think you guys should go have a conversation about this and get back to me because like there's some miscommunication, so that's good. Like you guys should figure that out and like learn about your red folders and like talk about. I don't know. I have an interesting juxtaposition when people can be very intimate in like every way and then culturally we're like finances, nope, that's a line, like we're just going to draw this line between like male and female of like who's in charge. And I'm like, or we don't have to do that, and like maybe someone's better at than the other, but that just becomes a conversation about like, okay, like how can you help me understand math? It's not and that's where I think it has to become less emotional. It just has to become, here's some facts and here's some stuff. Here's how math works. This is what our mortgage is. This is if something happened, this is what the years would be like on my annual breakdown to support you.
But when that happens and somebody has a mental block, do you try to break the ice by doing a dance or maybe doing a kick line with your hands?
I definitely make a joke. I had a lot of critiques from my bosses. They're like, Connor, you need to put away your smile when you're talking to people about death, because I'm just like a naturally cheery dude. I'm like, yeah, like I don't know, like whole life, like here's what that would look like and this is what it does, and like that's great, and like if you die they're like, Connor, whoa, you have to calm it with your face. I know you're stuck in theater world, but your smile is way too big. If anyone wants to know, my smile is kind of as big as the Joker's.
Yeah, I was just going to
context.
say, Connor has a giant smile, and he's smiling through this whole thing. You would also make a terrible mortician or like funeral director.
Or a great one, because sometimes...
No, because can you imagine that he's like, welcome to the funeral, and everybody's like, what the heck is wrong with that guy? You're supposed to look like sad and
Somber.
we're sorry about your loved one, not like, hey, it's a party.
I think that Connor would be the perfect insurance agent for me, because I respond to these theatrics, which is actually just part of who you are.
Yes.
And it's authentic. But
Here's the funny thing. When you're talking about people getting life insurance, I'm having this emotional reaction. Like, I'm so excited for them. Because I just know that when you do have a death, there is this sense of relief, right? So when I hear you being successful selling somebody a life insurance policy, I'm like, oh, yay! I feel so excited for them and happy for them.
Because they did it.
Chances are they're not going to need it, but if they do, that's going to be so great for them.
It's the worst if they did not get it. Yeah. We have horror stories of all that stuff.
And and I can imagine. So my favorite thing is to go into a house where someone will have inquired or requested our services. And then specifically like what my company uses, we use an app that's made around budgeting, because a lot of people think it's expensive. And then our system is like, no, you can get a bunch of stuff and it's not that much. Here you go. And my favorite thing is when I type everyone's information of like insurances that they already have, like what their expenses are, and the system pops out nothing. That's like my favorite thing, because then I just get to stop the presentation and then we just get to clap at each other. And then we just get to talk about like, okay, like who are the people who are going to be like handling those finances? Like, what is the plan? Like, who you want to give the biggest pot to? Cheryl. And Cheryl's like, ooh, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, that's great, Cheryl. Can I curse on this? I don't know if I can.
Then you're like, why did you call me? You can, but Mel will cover it with a duck
because
sound. That's our.
Sometimes our moms listen and we're scared of them.
Of course. Well, I'm going to say.
Because I live in their house.
Pick it up, Cheryl. Pick it up, Cheryl.
That one definitely has to have a quack. My mom will have a coronary.
I love that.
Oh my gosh.
It's
so
really
Connor, I mean, this is two completely different worlds. The artistic world that's all about peace and love and sharing talents and all that stuff. And the insurance world that's about money. How do you navigate this?
Oh, yeah.
Because you are I mean, I know you. You're an awesome human being. You're not like sleazy and disgusting and slimy.
It's been very funny navigating capitalism, because I am so not in the capitalist mindset. So I'm always trying to make, whereas opposed to a lot of insurance sales and a lot of people in those sales know that the people who are going to be talking to either don't think about it at all, or the other two times that they think about it is when someone dies or someone gets really sick. Those are essentially the only times people think about life insurance. So either someone's knocking at your door, and because like most of the time there isn't a lead call that you're like going into someone's house being like, hey, you requested our service. Most of the time someone's showing up and saying, hey, you want this thing? And then if their ability to quick talk to you gets you into a sale, that's how they sell you. The only other two times is when someone's uninsurable because they have a terminal illness or they have some sort of medical problem, or someone dies. The feelings that you can get are like, because it's sales and like it's gambling on life. Mel knows, like, I live by very modest means and I have never been like, I'm here to make money. It's like, I was here to jazz and now I just can't jazz. So now I'm going to do something else.
Sales culture is so much that way too. Like with anything, like even if you're trying to sell something on social media, it's just like, it all of a sudden can easily just become about your numbers only. Yes. And it's easy to forget the customer. I think that's hard. I mean, I have to I'm creating piano courses and stuff. And so there's some of that stuff I have to investigate. And it's so easy just to see like that is a really easy flip for somebody because you're like narrowly focused and you're like, I'm trying to survive. But it's like, you don't want to rape people
Yes.
just
And
to
like,
buy some piano stuff.
so that's what it kind of, and this is, I think, what most jobs become about. It's like, what is the line that you're in it to benefit yourself? And then what is the line that you're there to help other people? So, and my awesome girlfriend, Kaylee, she's always in the background. And I always am turning around to her being like, am I a good person? Like I am always judging it against a metric that I set for myself. Like right when I got into it, when I like found out what the beast was, I was like, oh, these people are making a lot of money. And I was like, oh, that's how you can make a lot of money. I don't want to do that. Like I want to educate. I want to make sure people know what's going on, because most of the time when I'm talking to people, they actually have no idea about the terms and conditions of what essentially their policies look like, how to use them, what they even do. I've heard so many people say the phrase, I have this term life for my whole life. I'm not worried. And I'm like, you just said two different things, but someone told you one thing one time and you misinterpreted it. And I know what that means. So now you think this term policy is going to last your whole life. But like realistically, when that term ends, they're just going to have to re-up you at a new price for what your new age is. And like that premium might be like really uncomfortable for you. And they're like, 1 second, that's a thing? And I'm like, yeah, look at the paper you're showing me. Like, that's what it means. So, and people just like aren't reading, or when they were first sold, they don't know what the terms even mean. And like, given that I had to get literally licensed in them to understand what they mean. You're raising your hand?
I have a question. I like how like this episode for me is all about my feelings, because I keep saying that. Like, I'm feeling right now, Connor. I'm feeling some push and pull, because understanding that life insurance is awesome and a blessing and you should have it. But how do you find somebody who's not going to take advantage of you?
Okay, so this is where I usually come in. This is me where I like come into someone's home and I'm like, hey, I'm going to ask you questions about your finances and going to figure out what it looks like and figure out like what is comfortable for you to spend. Because the thing that you don't want to get, it's so you guys were talking about the box that goes in the ground and waterproofing it. And that's essentially like, oh, how can I sell you a Cadillac when you need a box? And that's what it comes down to. It's like, people don't always need a Cadillac. Some people just want a Cadillac, and that's cool, but you don't need to give everyone a Cadillac. And some people's mentality is give everyone a Cadillac. And if everyone could have a Cadillac, great. But the thing is, most people can't afford Cadillacs, and they also shouldn't have them, because their day-to-day life shouldn't involve having to deal with a Cadillac. So it kind of comes about that conversation of like, what is comfortable for you? How do you feel about these things that you can pay? And also there's a term called guaranteed insurability, where usually policies have a rider where if, say, you get more money in the future, you can usually buy more insurance later down the road for a predetermined amount, say like $25,000, where you can like just tack that on and you don't need a new medical exam and you don't need to get any new information added. So like there are ways to do that. So
maybe being educated as a potential consumer would be helpful.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and this is where you would, so the 3 times that people talk to you, where it's like someone dies, someone gets sick, or someone shows up to sell you something, we should honestly make a 4th category where we like normalize the conversation. I've had so many conversations with specifically young millennials and single young millennials who are like, why didn't they teach us this in school? And I'm like, I don't know why. But at least like brush on it really quickly and be like, this is how this financial system works.
They probably do, and guess what? Nobody is listening because you're not paying attention in school.
I remember people were like, why don't they teach us how to pay taxes in school? And I was like, they taught me how to pay taxes in school. I remember that lesson. It was hard.
It was boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you stopped listening.
There are like scams out there. You should realistically, like if someone like shows up to your door or someone Zooms you, you should like know that they should have an agent number, and they also like what company they work for and have a way to contact that company. But also you should, if you're reaching out to someone, then it's going to be safer. So you would just go through, like I said earlier, those accredited like AM's Best or Moody's. You would go see who is a rated company. So you can see like who's rated. If they're an agent there, you should be able to check all that information. But like I was saying earlier, the dime method is probably your max amount of like what you should be getting insured for. And then the other is kind of a little more intuitive of what is your actual budget. Does that make sense? So the dime method being your debts, income, mortgage, education being like your max amount that you should be getting insured for. If someone's going to try and sell you over that amount, like all that math added up, you can do it in less than 5 minutes. Someone's going to sell you on that. That means that they're probably trying to oversell you. And they're trying to like show you how these things are good because they are a product. And then the other way would be like, okay, like what's your monthly take home? And then like, what is a 5% or under that? That's around where your range would be of what you're like paying for something.
So just beware if somebody's trying to push for you to spend over your amount that you're wanting to spend, that could be a scammer, correct?
Yes, like, and or they would be an aggressive salesman. It would be either an aggressive salesman, which you can kind of smell, and then a scammer, like, because this is the other, like there are scammers out there who, but the scamming is more general. They're just more trying to get you quickly to a bank statement and a social security number. So if there's someone not doing any sort of presentation and they're not doing anything that involves licensed knowledge of a field, or if you ask them a question and they're like, oh, like how does this pay out over the course of 20 years? What is the rates on this? Does my whole life premium stay the same? And how long are your average term policies for? If you asked any of those questions and they were like, I don't understand, you'd be like, you don't sell insurance, because those are all very easy questions.
How do you feel about life insurance policies that are based on super random criteria, but then you don't need a physical for them? I'm super attracted to those.
So are you talking about a no exam policy? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but like on my social media, I get ads all the time. They're like, if you can run a mile in less than 9 minutes, you can get this great life insurance policy. And I'm like, yes, I want that life insurance policy. It doesn't need an exam. And I feel more attracted to those than the ones that do need an exam. I think because of I want to commit fraud.
It's just like I'm here for it.
Yes.
Honestly,
the only answer.
It's easier to have the exam one, because if you're just healthy on those things, like if you're healthy on your exam, then what's going to happen is like you don't get rated, you are going to have a cheap policy. Like you actually want them to come out and like do a physical on you because it's for free. They'll just give you a free physical.
What if you don't want them to come do a physical on
Well,
you?
then the thing becomes about the no exam. And I don't know too much about this because my company doesn't do no exams. Like right now during COVID, certain things are being waived. Like sometimes if a policy is under a certain amount, no one's going to come out to your house anyway because they're like, okay, it's for such a little amount.
Because it's like
the weight of
the exam.
Our agent and nurses dying is not being outweighed for the amount that you got on this policy, because it's like a $25 a month policy. It's nothing. So
yeah.
So okay. I don't feel a specific way about them, but I do know that no exam policies, like if they have clauses in them, they're going to be harder on the back end, potentially about, and this is just what I know from dealing with the business for a while now. If it's no exam, then they're going to have exceptions that are more broad in their scope.
So you die, and then they're like, you actually couldn't run a 9-minute mile, and now we don't have to cover you.
Like, so that becomes like your trade-off of like, okay, realistically, once again, you would have to go and you would have to read all the exceptions, because like on most life insurance, like you can't commit suicide, like that'll get you that will get you out of being able to claim on policies. Being drunk while driving, that's committing a crime, so you also can't claim on those policies. So like if you're committing a crime whilst you are dying, then you can't claim on those policies.
So wait, I thought that, okay, so you're saying most policies do not cover suicide, but I thought that a lot of them had like a time period, like we won't cover suicide in the first like 5 years of your policy.
Yeah, and that
true or false?
It
or just
depends on companies and states, because also each state has like different rules. Like there's a lot of similarities between state rules and regulations, but at least from what I know, New York has its own set of rules, and then within each company, because also it depends on what the company is really willing to risk. Like, is the company willing to risk, okay, 2 years and then suicide's on the table? But then also in some states, suicide's illegal. So that's another way around it. So it depends where these things are happening.
This is something to look into.
Yeah, it
also.
depends how dark you
Like
want to get
move-
in a planning.
Okay. So I want to ask you about one other thing. Can we just talk about the myth of that, like, husbands need a lot of life insurance and wives don't need life insurance? Can we just talk about that? I think about that a lot, and how that is, I think it's probably getting better, but that's a total weird way to think about things. Can you just tell me I'm right?
Yeah, I would also think you're right in the
Thanks.
sense of, like, at least even in my family, we had the opposite. So like my dad had his finances in order, but my mom was the one who was actually the most insured. So she had a term policy for our whole lives growing up. That was for, I think, $1 million or something like that. Because it was like, if my mom knew that if she died, we wanted a full-time live-in, like, staff essentially to like raise the kids.
Yes.
So it depends on which financial push and pull you need more. So like some people, like, okay, maybe on the dad, you would get an income protection program for him to protect his income if he died. But you don't need as big a policy because his income over the course of 5 years actually isn't as much. But the mom actually needs maybe a 20-year, $1 million term policy, because if she dies, there's no one taking care of the kids, because like the dad's still going to have to go to work, while the mom, on the other hand, might just be able to like get a job and continue on, or will have familial support. So it totally depends on the finances per the house. But also now in 2020, men and women are working. Everyone's working. It's like the breadwinner fantasy thing that used to be a thing. Like I don't even want to go into the technicalities of that concept, aren't a thing anymore. So everyone's just working. So it's I'm working, she's working.
I know it's not the fairy tale of the dad is the hand model and the mom stays home to take care of the kids anymore. Like that's not realistic anymore, you guys.
And also there is, what about same-sex couples? Because like we were talking about before, you're saying that once a man hits 55 and up, then their health is more at risk. So what if you have a same-sex female couple? Any differences that you would say there? Because I'm
going to say their policies are just going to be cheaper.
See?
Like,
Anita!
Like women.
That's why we're in a relationship, Mel. A fake widow-wives relationship.
Like, and like we just know that. So females.
And I require at least 50 million because I cannot take care of your kids. I too will need a staff. I'm inept.
If I am gone, I need a mansion worth of staff to replace me.
Yes. I need a Downton Abbey. I need a valet. I need 2 footmen. I need a cook.
I need a Hagrid. And a Professor McGonagall. Like all of it.
Yeah. And some owls. I want an owlery.
Some owls. Yes. I just want to make sure, Anita, that your kids are taken care of. And I don't want to ruin their lives even further. So.
Yeah, that's all I'm doing right now. Anyway, so. Okay. Deal. I agree. $3 million per child to take care of them and send them to Hogwarts.
Yeah, oh, there's a child.
That's the plan.
Every year until they're adults.
That's the school what I go to.
So I need at least 40 million. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Connor, how much will a $40 million policy be? Will it be $25 a month?
Yeah, it's somewhere around that plus some zeros, I would say everyone should definitely have more than just a primary beneficiary. You should have a contingent beneficiary and maybe even 2. The group.
That's something I need to actually do. Because my beneficiary right now is Jason on the policy that I have. So I need to go in and switch that stuff all around.
So also another thing that a lot of people do is insuring also their debts. So a decreasing term policy. So that means the policy decreases in its value. So the premium stays level, but the policy decreases over time, which would be something that you would also get on a mortgage for a house. So like, say you were to die tomorrow, but your mortgage will be completely paid off because it's essentially keeping the balance of a mortgage. People should also understand, and this also parents with kids should know that the debts of their child or the debts of your partner, those things also get pushed to other people. So to cover your debts is also like a huge thing that you can insure. The only thing else I would want to say is like take 30 minutes to educate yourself, and that will probably carry you through the next 10 years of like if someone was trying to speed sell you. But if you're going to buy a policy, just go buy one now, because in 10 years it's also going to be more expensive. So you would be surprised at how cheap things are, especially when you're young. So
Connor, you're the best. Who would have known that back in those days when you were working on helping the cast members with the giant dragon tail, and I was over in the corner wondering what was happening, that we would be here talking about life insurance on a podcast months later. I never would have thought that.
I also never would have thought that. I thought 2020 was going to be a little different. I thought it was like, this is going to be my year. This is when we take it to Broadway.
I know, right? I'm like, I'm going to move across the country, and here finally something's looking up, and then explosion. But then you know what? I've been through so many explosions that now I'm like, oh, of course. That was very on brand. Every 6 months, there's a thing. It's fine. But now the whole world is dealing with it.
Yeah, I think I'm more now in the business of kind of collecting the stories that I go through life with. Like, I think that's kind of the more interesting part of life in general anyway. It's just I get a lot of really interesting, fun stories. Like, this is also going to be like an interesting, fun story that I just get to take into the future, because who knows like how long I'll be in this career field for. It's like if I do well in it, that's great. If I don't, I helped some people along the way. That's kind of my only goal, but that also kind of is my goal for whatever I do. So as long as I can just be upfront with people and help and maybe jazz and make a few jokes, okay, then we're good.
Now, before we recorded this podcast, you and I, Connor, spoke on the phone, and one thing that I really appreciated was that you said, I don't leave a person until they know exactly what they're buying. And that is the kind of insurance person you need to look for, everybody.
Yeah. I think if I can help anyone suss out bad guys, if you ask them a question and they don't take the time to eloquently, slowly, and deliberately answer it for you, then they're hiding something. And that's kind of what I found in life. If someone is not willing to take the time to answer any innocent questions, then like they're going too fast. And if someone's going too fast, then something is wrong. Because I don't know, like with life, there should be consent all along the road of like understanding like this like mutual agreement that is silent and spoken of like being like, I want to make sure that we're on the same page as we understand this world together. Do you want to talk about hand modeling? We can have a whole hand modeling section, because I know that's what we're actually here for now.
It's true. I feel like you need to come back just for an entire episode on hand modeling and stories, like funny stories. It'll be so fun.
Oh my gosh, being dressed in a blonde wig to putting my hands straight into fire to juggling hammers.
I am here for that, Connor. When I came into this episode, I was not very excited because I thought it was going to be dumb and boring, but necessary. And so now I feel like I've gotten a bonus today, and I'm feeling much happier about life insurance now, even though it might be boring. You still need to have it, because just get it. Please just get some freaking life insurance and find a nice salesman like Connor, who might also be a hand model, to sell you some.
And if you are in New York State, Connor is licensed there, and he would be happy to talk to any of our listeners. So we will link to his information in the show notes.
And he will eloquently explain any information, no matter how small the question is.
And if you ask me to hand model anything that I can find within a 5-yard range, I will do it for you at no cost.
No cost?
That is actually the bargain, because these hands are expensive, so everyone's getting a deal.
Okay.
Oh man, Connor, you're gonna have to join us on our next Widow Bingo Zoom, because
that sounds great.
I feel like he would get along with a lot of people.
This has been fun. Everybody, I hope that you have found this episode to be like I found it, surprisingly fun, and that it's been useful information too. And just get yourself some life insurance. I'll just say that like 5 more times. Remember to check out the Widow Wives Club, answer all the questions. And if you want to keep the podcast going, find Patreon, patreon.com/WWDN. And we also just started a new thing called, what is it called?
It's called Buy Me a Coffee.
We had some people inquire about one-time donations, and
here's the deal. Should I tell what it is?
yeah, explain.
I want to know. I want to know.
If you Google Buy Me a Coffee, it'll take you to the site. Now, you can set your currency to be coffee, to be tacos, to be something else. So ours, even though it's on the Buy Me a Coffee site, you can buy us tacos. And it's $5 a taco. We'll take anything so that we can help keep this going and that Anita can get a babysitter ongoing.
That's what we're here for.
Yes. Because right now she's not going to get $50 million from life insurance to have a fully staffed house.
So silly.
Downton Abbey's the goal.
It totally is. Until next time, join us on our next episode. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
I'm Connor. Thank you guys for having me. This is so fun.
We're just two young widows and a salesman / hand model / choreographer trying to figure out widow we do now. I forgot what our thing was because I was so focused on Connor's
many skills.
on his resume.
This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys. Such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.